Hello, my name is Milton Nash. I'm the Dean of Math, Statistics, and Data Science at Montgomery College, which is located in the state of Maryland in the greater Washington, D.C. metro area. Over the next few minutes, I will share a few tips that have worked for me on how to study to learn. And my focus will be on how to study to learn mathematics. And so you're going to class, you're taking good notes. What next? And so I have just a few suggestions. And if you will bear with me one moment, I will share my screen. There we go. And my very first tip is don't be afraid to ask questions. I know that oftentimes students are reluctant to ask questions in class because they think they're the only ones who don't understand, or because they're afraid they might look stupid in front of other people. But to the contrary, what often happens is that when one student in the class asks a question, there are at least 5 other people in the room who were quiet, but they are really glad you spoke up because they had the exact same question, but were afraid to ask. I tell my students that one of the things you're actually supposed to be learning as a college student is how to ask good questions. This is an important component of critical thinking. As you study your notes or do your assigned reading, I recommend that you make notes on your notes. For example, write question marks next to things that are unclear. These are questions to bring to class or to your professor's office hours. So ask questions in class, ask questions when you study alone, ask questions when you study in groups with other students, and ask questions when you visit your professor in his or her office hours. And I strongly encourage you to use those office hours. It is through questions and that back and forth with other people that you tease out nuances in understanding the material and discover your own inner angle towards understanding it. And speaking of your own inner angle, this brings me to the next point. There is very often more than one way to solve a problem. And problem-solving strategies can often be very individual. Tell stories that help the problem to make more sense to you. And my next point, learning happens in community, especially when you try to explain ideas to someone else. I have known experienced mathematicians who decided they want to learn a new area of mathematics, and so they teach a class on it. There is nothing like having to explain ideas to other people to force you to really understand the ideas more deeply yourself. Form study groups with other students in your class and teach one another. Explain the concepts to each other. Problem solve together. You will often find that different people bring different perspectives that will enrich your understanding. Another place on campus where you can learn in community is, again, in your professor's office, but also in the learning or tutoring centers. Tutors can be extremely helpful to you. Plus, this is another opportunity to be exposed to different perspectives and ways to explain things. That is another opportunity for the ideas to click and to make sense to you. Next, it is okay to try and to fail, to make mistakes. This is another area where I think there are a lot of unhelpful myths about learning math. But in fact, we often learn the material more deeply through the mistakes we make while trying to learn it. Not only is it okay to make mistakes, you should be willing to make mistakes along the way to understanding. The important thing here is you have to be willing to try. And that brings me to the next tip: practice, practice, and more practice. And this means do a lot of problem exercises. It's practice that helps you to internalize the principles and skills that you're being taught. Checking the solutions in the back of the book or in the solutions manual is a good way to start building confidence that you're on the right track in making progress. But don't over-rely on the solutions in the back of the book or found on the internet. That's okay in the beginning, but as you gain mastery, you should rely on these resources less and be able to get to the correct result before consulting an external resource, because eventually you want to achieve some independence for the time when you will be tested on your knowledge. And this brings me to my final tip. Be patient with yourself and with the process. Learning takes time. If you're frustrated or not understanding, then it is okay to take a break and come back with a fresh mind and a new perspective. In fact, it's actually a good idea to spread your studying out over the entire week. First, soon after class, while the information is fresh in your mind, then spread out in regular increments throughout the week. The important thing is don't give up and use all of your resources. And oh, yes, don't forget, don't cram, try to cram the night before the exam. Really, you want to try to absorb this information over a period of time and give your brain time to incorporate all the information. And with this last suggestion, I conclude my remarks and I'll end here, but I just want to wish you good luck and good studying.